And for some reason, I don't seem to have the option to stream to YouTube either. So I've just started recording and we can upload it after the call once it processes. All right, Alessio, we're recording, so if you want to take over as master of ceremonies here, feel free. You are currently muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to talk or not. I do see your screen.
I'm not sure why this thing muted myself, like just because I was sharing the screen. That's sort of weird. All right, guys. So
yeah, Zoom's just firing on all cylinders tonight.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to the community poll PieDAO. Very clean call. We have a bunch of things to talk about. We also have some celebration in order. So without any further ado, because we are already a few minutes late, let's see what do we have on the agenda. So I'm not sure. We have a special guest today, which is a Jelly Swap team. I don't know if it's in the call already. If you are, please raise your hand or just talk, and we're gonna put you like as panelist. The Jelly Swap guys have been working on a BTC++ integration a couple of days ago, and they've been signaled that into the governance forum. So we wanted to give them the chance to actually explain to the community how that works and what that means from a market making opportunity. Gonna ask again, do we have anyone from Jelly Swap yet? Doesn't look like. Maybe someone can ping them on the Discord. I think that would be helpful. But while we wait for them to join, we have finally like a very first allocation of DeFi ++ Pi. That's something has been discussed into the PIP WIP channel for a little bit. There have been a couple of different opinions. Like we're going to go through some of the options and how they might look like. As usual, like as we get to learn a little bit of a more formalized stage, I will put that together into a forum post as you guys are used. Then I'm gonna very quickly talk about the DAO upgrades. There are right now a few votes about the proposal that Mick made, I think a couple of community calls ago, which is now coming into play about a agile way to manage specific things into the DAO. So there are a number of votes for getting a new agent up, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that later. And finally, we get to celebrate, guys. Like this is a great time. If you guys have been following up the community, total value locked into pies has been crossing 1 million and actually approaching 1.7 million something. I think we actually just crossed 1.7 million. All of that happened within 48 hours. So that's extremely exciting to see. So I think a couple of beers with the community are in order. Without any further ado, as usual, we have a special pop-up NFT token that we distribute at every community call. This is kind of becoming a ritual, which I really like. So, keep up with your collection of PieDAO community calls collection. We will be distributing the NFT URL. As you might know, there is a slightly difference compared to how we did before. Pop-up has been moving into a phase you have to claim it yourself now, but it is very much worth it to claim it. So let's do that. I want to reconfirm there is none of the person like into this community call right now of the Jelly Swap. Can one maybe ping them on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh yeah. Are you in the panelist already?
Yeah, I'm here. So
all right.
maybe
So
I
I'm
can,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm not gonna steal any more of your time. Just take over, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.
Tito was just promoted to panelist, so it might take him a minute to catch up.
It usually takes between 20 seconds to switch from one to another. Tito, feel free to share screen. I'm actually very excited about. I don't think we can hear you anymore. Like you might be.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
So thank you very much for joining us. I think it's very exciting what you guys have been doing.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure for us. So my name is Tito, and I'm one of the founders of JellySwap. And we're building a cross-chain atomic swap protocol where basically you can exchange any Ethereum token or ETH for some BTC. We have Eternity, and we will add more chains soon. So we believe that your token BTC Post is one of the coolest token currently, and one of the best representations of BTC on the Ethereum network. So we have decided to integrate it, and we have some talks with the team. And I think that this is a great opportunity for your community and for any Bitcoin holder in general to swap his Bitcoin for BTC++ and vice versa. And that way we can make DeFi even stronger, and we can bring more BTC liquidity into the network. Of course, anyone can be a liquidity provider as well, because the protocol is completely open source. So everyone can start non-custodial liquidity bot on his computer, start providing liquidity, for example, on the pair BTC or BTC BTC, and he can also earn some profit from the trading fees, because everyone can put his own, let's say, spread. And as long as we have edge, I mean, nowhere you can swap BTC for BTC++, but you can do it on our platform. So I believe that liquidity providers can put like higher spreads for now. And the other cool thing is that we are running a market making incentivized program. So anyone can join the program, and if you provide some liquidity, you can earn some interest on monthly basis. So currently our rate is something like 12.6% annually, which is pretty high in my opinion. Of course, now we have the craze about comp and some other tokens, but I think that 12.6% interest on top of the liquidity that you are providing is some pretty good incentive, and yeah, you can join.
I think it's very fascinating. Like, and to some degree, from a farming perspective, with this meme, you guys might have seen like in crypto Twitter lately. It's kind of a next step that people can basically plug into their strategy, which is completely non-custodial, since like those tokens will not be sitting on smart contract. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're completely correct. Everything is used on demand. So users can, for example, provide liquidity, and at the same time, they can, let's say, stake or lend in some other protocol. This feature is still under development, but yeah, this is one of the biggest innovations, that funds are used on demand, and you can have multiple source of profit. For example, you can lend and turn from the lending, and at the same time we can provide liquidity. And yeah, this can happen with our bot in completely automated manner. And we are solving the problem with the impermanent walls, because we have a bot which is doing rebalancing. So anytime when someone is taking some of your orders, you can rebalance on Binance, but we don't need this when we have BTC and BTC, because basically the price is the same. So it's working kind of similar to Curve, but for BTC plus BTC.
Yeah, I think this is a very fascinating idea. Actually, on the price perspective, that's something I was looking at because to some degree, actually, BTC++ have been trading at a slight premium compared to regular Bitcoin. Like if I'm correct right now, prices on CoinGecko are 9,700 for BTC++ compared 9,200 something. Which is very interesting because like with the solution you're proposing, but it's gonna happen is like you can very easily swap one-to-one things and maybe arbitrage somewhere else.
Yeah, sure. I think that it could be many other use cases that we haven't even imagined still. But yeah, we are providing the bridge, and anyone can use it the way it works for him. So
that
if
sounds
you have
great.
some other ideas or whatever, we are always open, and we can do some other integrations and add new features. And yeah, the other cool thing is that in one place you can pretty fast exchange BTC for BTC++, and after that go to Aave or Compound or wherever else, and you can use it as collateral. I don't know if you're supported in this lending platforms already, but I'm sure that you will be soon.
I definitely know that there are some activities in place to get BTC++ as collateral. I think we might have some news soon about that, but it's definitely something in the making. So before we open this to the entire community, like I guess some people might have some questions. Do you maybe wanna share your screen, show how the Butler works? Like how do we need to get started for this? I think it would be beneficial.
Okay, so can you see my screen now?
I can indeed.
Okay. Basically, this is our website, which is app.jelly.market. You can see it, right? Can you confirm?
I can, yes.
Okay. And basically, the idea is that we wanted to keep some pretty simple UI similar to Uniswap. So here we already integrated BTC++. So you can exchange BTC++ for BTC or vice versa. And for example, you just write the amount that you want to swap and you automatically receive the best price. So you can see that at the moment we have a statistics website as well. And you can see that we have some liquidity on BTC++. We have only one liquidity provider, which is providing 0.13 BTC++. And when you come here, basically you are matched with the best price that is on the market. And when you connect your BTC wallet, you can use Ledger, and at the same time you should connect your MetaMask. And you can I have zero balance of BTC++, but I can swap some BTC for BTC++ and it will update my balance. We have some tabs for buy crypto, some finance to borrow to lend or borrow from Aave. And once you are there, people will be able to swap BTC for BTC++, and then from the same application come to Aave and just deposit and start earning some profit. This is basically the end user app, which is used by our end users. And as you mentioned, we also have a liquidity provision software, which I will hide you now. I will show you now.
Yeah, it is cool, but that's very compelling. Like, looks very functional.
Thanks. So here is Butler. This is a desktop application which everyone can download on his computer. And it is, when you start the bot, it is completely non-custodial. Here you should put the name of your bot. For example, I will call it BTC++ bot. Then you should add the pairs that you want to support. For example, now I have PTH USDC, but I can support as well BTC++ against BTC, or yeah, whatever pair I want. Then I can put some fee that should be the fee that I'm willing to receive. And once this is set up, you should provide your public and private key pair, but it is completely non-custodial, decentralized and secure. So everything stays just only on your computer. You can imagine and think of this for something like a wallet, similar to Exodus or Jax, but it is not only holding your funds, but it can also provide some liquidity to Jelly protocol. When you set up the pairs that you want to support, when you put the fee percentage, and when you provide your words, I mean your public-private keys, you can then go to select a price provider. For example, we should take the price from somewhere. So we have two options, CryptoCompare and Binance. For this, you can use as well CryptoCompare or Binance, and it will map the price of BTC++ to the price of BTC. This is the current option, plus the spread that you are willing to receive. Because we don't have any source that is providing the price of BTC++ so far. But for example,
Gotcha.
we can use Uniswap or something like that in the future.
CoinGecko is a great source of price feed. It's been very proactive in this new tokens. Like you will find the vast majority of it. It also doesn't require an API key. So maybe
which one?
you can consider it. CoinGecko.
CoinGecko, yeah, I can try it. It's pretty cool. It's important to be stable because basically the whole system depends on that. Of course, we have some safety mechanisms. So if the price provider is down, the bot will stop and you're not going to lose your funds. And when you're ready with the config, you just click start. It is loading a little bit, validating your inputs, and it starts to provide liquidity. And you have wallet stuff where you can see your current balance of the tokens that you have. You can look at the walks to see the info walks, error walks, and so on. And once my liquidity provider is up and running, you can see that I'm providing some USDC, ETH, and Bitcoin. And when I come to our website, which is the statistics one that I showed you earlier, we should see our new liquidity provider, which is providing some liquidity on, let's go on USDC. And you can see that, I believe that it should be somewhere here. Never mind, when you start your liquidity provider, it will directly start providing liquidity to the protocol, and you will be able to see it and to match with the end users, which are swapping from here and matching with your botware, which is running on your computer. And as an incentive, we decided to give 1% interest monthly on every user who is providing liquidity to the protocol. So for example, if you're providing—
Where interest coming from?
It is paid directly from our team. I mean, we dedicated some funds, which we have from our investors and from our other projects. And we are dedicating these funds to incentivize the liquidity providers.
Sounds good. I want to open the discussion with other members of the community. By the way, if this is the first time you participate into this call, feel free to introduce yourself. Talking is permitted for everyone. So just,
okay.
I can say hi.
I think that I already introduced myself, but if I haven't, I'm one of the co-founders of JellySwap. My name is Tito. I'm also in the sphere since the beginning of 2017. Me and my co-founder Krasi are working constantly to improve the protocol. We will add some mobile versions as well. And basically we're DeFi fans and we want to support the community to build on top of it. And we're always open for discussions, for requests for new features. And if you have any questions or whatever, you can approach me in Twitter or Telegram, or you can find our social links in our website.
Fantastic. So guys, if you have any question for the JellySwap team, this is a great time to go deeper into the security model, or ask them any sort of information. Otherwise, you can find them very easily on social media, or you can just tag them into the PieDAO Discord at JellySwap. Before we move on, I have one last question for you. Do you any specific advice for people running the software on machine in terms of how they should think about OPSEC for that specific machine running the market making software?
You mean about the software, the hardware requirements, or?
Should we like implement any specific security policy? Should we use a computer that we don't use anywhere else? Like should we be behind some kind of protected network? Like
Yeah.
do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, what can I say is basically, as I told you, it is working on the same mechanism as the desktop crypto wallets. So something like Jax or Exodus or whatever have the same security issues. I mean, of course, if you have some virus on your computer or whatever, then they can steal your funds. But if you are just keeping some let's say antivirus program, you don't have any malicious software on your computer, and yeah, you're not opening some malicious website, I think that this is enough. Our software is protected as your computer is. So if your computer is fine, then everything is fine. If you use even MetaMask or some other not hardware wallet on your computer, you have the same risk. So our software is as secure as possible. Just keep your computer safe and don't open some malicious software or malicious websites.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Tito, for...
Can you also run this
please,
from the CLI or like a low spec machine like a Raspberry Pi? Or...
Yeah, sure. We have a CLI version which don't have that beautiful UI, but it is really resource, let's say it is really resource optimized. So I believe that on some microcomputer like Raspberry Pi or some old computer, you can start the software. I believe that requirements should be something like 1 GB RAM and yeah, and maybe some hardware space, but not more than 2-3 gigabytes. And basically that's it. And some basic computing power, like one core processor should be enough. And you need, of course, some internet connection. And the other thing is that your bot should be up and running 24/7 if you want to provide liquidity. If you want to stop providing liquidity, you can just stop the software and that's it. You are out of the game. If you have some pending swaps or withdrawals, when you stop your software, you have 24 hours to start the software again and to complete everything that is pending. So even if your electricity is down or you have some internet outage or whatever, you still have 24 hours to make your software up and running to keep your funds safe.
Sounds good. Any other question for Tito before we move on?
Well, I'll just note that I'm currently the one providing liquidity for BTC++, and I didn't have to do anything special on my router, any NAT settings, anything like that. It just kind of worked seamlessly. It was able to reach outside of my network and connect and receive all of the signals it needed to receive. So just wanted to give you guys props on making that work. That's not even the Grid Ethereum software does that effectively. So it is very easy to use, and as long as you have a secure computer to use it, it's quite simple to set up.
Thank you, Dan.
Great. Okay. So thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to ask you to stop the sharing.
Yeah, sure.
For a moment. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get back on the agenda. I'm going to share my screen again. Next up is, there you go, DeFi++. And by the way, I see Jeff in the call. Jeff, if you anytime you want to say hi, I know this is your first call with us, feel free to introduce yourself. Yeah, and if there is any other new, maybe there are a couple of new people. So feel free to get this time to introduce yourself before we start talking about DeFi++.
Yes, I finally made it to one. I've resolved my time zone issues and have some time. This is obvious. So I'm Jeff Bennett. Fresh from ETH Global and very similar my DeFi Pi project. And so I'm very strong interest in the specific asset allocations over different DeFi And I have a lot of ideas. I'm excited to see it develop.
Great to have you here. Is anybody else wants to introduce himself before we go on? Gonna give it a couple of seconds to think about. Doesn't look like. All right. If on to any time, just unplug the unmute. So what is DeFi++? As you guys might have seen, this would be our third allocation. That's something that has been discussed for a little bit within the PWIP work in progress proposals. This is, I think, one of the most interesting allocation that we're going to approach eventually. There is a lot of buzz with the idea of coming together with some sort of index or allocation that makes sense in order to have exposure to the entire DeFi market. Now, DeFi is an extremely obviously dynamic industry. So after thinking about it, eventually we realized that well, like you could approach this in many different ways. As you guys might know, the Balancer protocol at the moment has a hard limit of a token per specific pool, which basically means we cannot really go higher than that. Following that reasoning, eventually they popped out to actually split the DeFi ++ pie into two major sub pie, which we've been thinking about: small cap and large cap. So the definition of small cap in this allocation we are looking right now, it's basically minus 150 million, and large cap is more than 150 million. These are obviously very low number compared to traditional finance, as I think, like it's in order in millions of being considered a large cap. They are kind of adjusted in terms of crypto markets, the way we know them. So in this slide over here, you can see a number of different propositions. As usually, we are going to provide like this model where you can play with and plug and unplug a number of different tokens by just toggling into the DeFi. So to see how this will impact eventually the allocation. So this is still in a proposal stage. The way I really think about it is more of a system, DeFi ecosystem pie. I think it's defining what pie is. It's an extremely tricky task at this moment, and it's very possible that we might end up into the discussion forever. So I'm kind of like thinking about this allocation in terms of inclusivity. I love to hear your thoughts about that. Before we move forward, one small detail: as you might know, there are a number of different tokens which are coming to market pretty recently. Most famous one may be Comp, and now BAL is obviously following up and also catching up a lot on Steam on our community. You might see that over here there are two values considered max weight. There is our reason for it, and the reason is, as this token have been around for very little time, it's very difficult to make decent or precise estimation about what is amount of weights they should take in the pie. Like, because these tokens have been basically being out almost immediately to very high large caps, and it's unclear if this is going to be sustainable over time or if this is going to keep up. For this reason, a max weight has been implemented to this model, and you can play with it and see how that is affecting the entire model. Moving on, going a little bit more into the details of how the large pie proposal looks like right now. You can see is basically composed of kind of some OG tokens out there, like the 0x token, which has been around for a very long time, and then SNX, REP, MKR, Link, Lend, KNC, and Comp. As you might have seen, like Comp is one of these tokens that actually will reach the cap similarly to MKR and Link, and eventually stop at 15%. You will find some sort of like backtesting, but it's obviously very tricky to do that because comp has been around for like, I don't know, a week, and the BAL has been around for less than that. So like you shouldn't take that as any meaningful data point necessarily, but it kind of lays down the structure to make that kind of thinking. The small cap instead, the way like it's been, as I said, thought as an ecosystem pie. So in this current proposal, for instance, we've been kind of stretching the definition of DeFi by even including Ant, which I think is going to become a very relevant ecosystem token. As you might know, like a vast number of different DeFi projects have been looking into Aragon DAOs to specifically run on governance mechanism. So we felt like there might be a place. That's something I also like to get your thoughts on. The allocation, so it's in totality comprised by UMA, REN, LRC, BAL, AST, and ANT. Again, you will find in the Excel basically how the index return has been performing in the last few days. Obviously up because of BAL and a few others. So that's the way it looks like. The way the DeFi index itself instead is costed, and that we're coming back to the basic idea of extending the limit of 8 tokens for balancer pool, is, as I said, 2 sub pies. Specifically in the composition of 70% large cap and 30% small cap. The DeFi index is initially priced at 1,000. This can change if we want to. Like, I think there are some psychological factor about that. It's really like more about the psychology of it than the actual numbers. And then what we can end up doing at creation is basically pegging, for instance, one DeFi plus at 1 on 1,000 of the DeFi index. That's it's basically up to us to figure out what will work best, and would be very interested to hear more opinions about that. There is an active discussion in Discord, PIP-WIP, so feel free to join it anytime. Last thing I wanted to show, this is what is going to eventually be shared in the forum post, as we usually do. So this is the Excel file. As usual, you play with a number of different things, plugging or unplugging things. This will recalculate the entire index and also the entire allocation. A little bit slow because it's Excel, as obviously. There are 2 slots available for specifically for the small cap part of the pie. This is because eventually it's becoming pretty clear that a number of different DeFi tokens will eventually pop out into this thing. Someone has even kind of proposed like a micro cap. That's maybe going a little bit too far. Yeah, might become difficult from a minting perspective. So I think it's probably rather I'd rather stay on the large cap / small cap allocation, but obviously like this is open to discussion. And then you can just go to the details of each one of the models. Data is, as usual, provided by ConGecko. Thank Daryl for being proactive in making sure those data is always updated. That's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. I really want to open this discussion to the community and see how do we think about that, and what are any major point that we can think of. Does anybody has an opinion? I see there are a few. Yeah.
Regarding the rebalancing of the index, does that happen continuously because it's a balancer pool, or does it happen every couple of months, or what?
Well, I think there are a number of different options. Like, I'm very much fascinated by the idea of instead of pausing trading or enabling trading continuously in order to enable rebalance, to leave it up and instead play with kind of a dynamic fee model. So you could say, we're gonna put these fees at 10% and try to disincentivize rebalance for quite a long time. And then whenever we see that there is actually a 10% upside because people are actually trading into the pool, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't do it. That basically means the price will rebalance itself. The other side, if you want to incentivize rebalancing, we might even end up lowering the fees to make sure that that happens, on a faster pace, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also the bow rewards are kind of a consideration into the DeFi Pi maybe, because if the fees are low, the bow rewards are higher, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Like, obviously, if the fees are lower, the bow rewards are higher. But it's also true that if you have low fees, then you're basically giving the upside of whatever DeFi portfolio you're putting together to the traders, right? Because like if this is continuously rebalanced, then yes, you keep always the same weights in a way that makes sense. But it also means that traders are going to make the profit.
Yeah.
Instead, the situation, they will only trade within the pool if the profit is, major 10%, for instance.
I've showed that when I did my back test of the balancer, that it preserves value very well, but it doesn't really profit because, as you say, all the profits are going to the traders.
Yes. So, like, do you think it makes sense to play with this dynamic fee model to disincentivize rebalancing?
Yeah, it does.
I think it's a pretty cool way to play with this, and I hope we might see in the future like even higher fees. Like that would be very interesting, as you basically stop rebalancing altogether. Like if the fees are insanely high, but this looks like the right strategy for this specific Pi, and also on the other side, it also enables to continuously receive BAL rewards, because even if fee is high and then the fee factor will be lower, you are still entitled to the BAL reward.
So right now in Balancer, yeah, the min-max fees are hard coded.
Yes, 0 to 10.
Yeah, but well, yeah, so you can change it, but only within those ranges. That's probably high enough, absolutely. Isn't it? 10% is probably high enough. That is a pretty big disincentive.
It's very high, so I think it's actually going to be extremely sufficient, and it also kind of gives you this alert thing where if there are actually trades within the pool, then it means that it's probably time to level up.
Right. The only thing is you now need a source for where you can't see the trades. You have to have a way to tell it what the trade volume is, and that could be a governance thing or something, as you pointed out. Like there could be some.
They can basically be plugged or kind of off chain, like through the DAO, pretty much. Like that's kind of the condor, in a way. Like the human eye can, we can have like either a Discord channel basically provide the trade volume on whatever, like, or we have some bots observing the price itself. Like we can add functionality to that and then decide as a community if it's time to change those fees, for instance. One other thing that I think it would be worth chatting about is, well, there are a couple of more things, right? One is assuming one of the small cap token within the small cap Pi actually grows in value significantly. How do we swap it from one to another? I think that's an interesting problem to think about, also because the large cap might end up being full because of the 8 token. So I think that's kind of a gray area that it's discussing. If someone has some idea specifically to this.
Well, yeah, in traditional, and also they may all be growing. Over time they might all get bigger. So when traditional, we have like a large and a SMID, and we just percentile rank them because they change. In some sectors they're fairly volatile, and you also have, in the traditional finance world, you have stock splits and market caps kind of flying all over the place, and we will percentile rank them and say large cap is the top 25% or something.
Yeah.
So then we don't have to worry about actual numbers, and that makes it a little bit better. But yeah,
I think that makes sense. Like, and I think part of this strategy can be implemented. I think in the original proposal I was proposing to pretty much relook at the weights every 4 weeks. As doing that quarterly doesn't seem to be beneficial for DeFi because it's too dynamic as a market to wait that much.
Right.
but assuming there is that, we could, basically come back to this consideration 1-2 weeks before the actual rebalancing process and changing the weights.
Yeah, because you don't want to be things flying back and forth, though, because if it's right on the edge, you want to go back and forth. So it might be a governance issue of whether should this be promoted to large cap, should this be demoted to small cap, and then move it.
Does anybody else has some opinion about this specific thing? Sorry, I interrupted you.
If we run into limits for the 8 tokens into the large cap, we might combine like 3 or 4 tokens of the large cap to like large cap A and large cap B. And then we have like a bunch of room left, right?
Yeah, I think it starts to become fairly complicated, but that would be definitely an approach. I think also, I'm not sure if it was Daryl or what else, like he was proposing you could, kind of wrap them into exchange pi, and then you can have, I don't know, like K and C and 0x, like kind of others. And then you can have, I don't know, governance pi or whatever, right? I think there was that might be like another way of categorize the internal token. Not sure if it makes more sense than doing A, B, and C, but at least it would be semantic. Like if you are very bullish on, I don't know, decentralized exchange, you might just get exposure to that.
Yeah, and it could be that they change value independently. Like if there's some big, like the centralized exchange versus decentralized exchange, if some big regulation comes out, the centralized exchanges might lose all their volume. So, I mean, they definitely could. That is a valid way to diversify, but it's just the trade-off of complexity if we need to get to that level.
Yeah, I think it's good to be iteratively enough, like in this kind of allocations, because it's very difficult to understand what is going to happen. And then we need to,
You should be able to capture it within the regular, like large cap should be large cap ones that represent the different sectors. It'll probably kind of take care of itself. I think you can find ones that are fairly diverse within just the 2 big categories of large and small.
Yeah, I also
Hopefully
think the same.
diversified enough.
And I think we can, I can see like a kind of embedding a community process into this sort of selection. Like some projects have been doing that before, like about, Compound or, MakerDAO, like when basically everybody was arguing, okay, should we add this thing or should we not? I think that's a good way to look at it. And we could get some sense, PieDAO community, and more generally speaking from the DeFi community, of what they want to see into something like that. Speaking of, like, Daryl, I know you have been working on a similar allocation for a synthetic one. Like, do you have something you want to share about this?
Yeah, so I guess the main thing for the synthetics pool is that we decided that since Compound and Balancer, they both were just listed, they have very little supply on the market right now. So it's a very easy way to manipulate the price feed and all. Another thing is that if it has a low float or low circulating supply on the market, it might be hard for the pie to capture enough. So if let's say UMA, Compound, or Balancer, they have like 10% of the pie. If the pie was to reach a 1 million AUM, that would be 100K each of tokens needed, which is not in the market right now.
Yeah, no, that's like an extremely valid point. Like, and to some degree, I was sort of advocating the idea to have some kind of scoring system, to have single token cap might fix or mitigate the issue, because you could come out with a framework saying, if this thing has been trading only, this amount of months, like, -4 weeks or -4 months, whatever, like, then it cannot reach more than 5%, right? And then you could say something similar in terms of the market depth or whatever it is the circulating supply, right? Like, you would say something, if you don't have like this amount available, then instead of the maximum cap to be 15%, it's actually 5, 5, 6, 7, whatever.
Also, Curve is coming out mid-July, so that would definitely be one contender to be included in a DeFi pie or DeFi index.
When is coming out? When did you say?
Mid-July.
Mid-July, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of empty slots are definitely beneficial to have if possible, or at least have strategy to eventually scale this thing to some degree. So yeah, that makes sense. But this is like a great point about market fund, especially I think more than the synthetics one. This is more important to a DeFi Pi because you actually need to put the actual token in it, right? It's not just synthetic, and then you don't have that problem. So we should take that into consideration. I think you linked that the proposal for the SDeFi somewhere in the Discord.
I made like a spreadsheet before on breaking down possible weightage allocations for SDeFi index.
Gotcha.
So I just linked it in the Discord.
Got it. Like I'm definitely gonna look more into that and see if we can take any inspiration. Do we wanna? Is there another opinion we want to talk about? This specific Pi. Otherwise, we can take this now into consideration, and then I will put them into a nice forum post, and then kind of list them as challenges, and then we can kind of debate how to fix that. Yeah, like in the upcoming days and weeks. Anything else someone wants to add? 3, 2, 1. Okay, we move on. All right, great. Next on the agenda, we have DAO upgrades. Now, for I am not sure, like if you guys recall, you probably do because I see a lot of aficionados over here. Some time ago, we have been talking about potential DAO upgrade. I will link the URL for the discussion actually in the chat for those who haven't had the chance to check it out. Actually, this idea for the DAO upgrades comes from a very simple predicament. We were actually speaking about that with some of the Aragon people recently. And the idea is we have ways, or we want to try to have ways to basically move quickly in some specific condition, right? So currently the standard voting cycle, it's always about 3 days, which might be sometimes kind of slow depending on some condition. I'm kind of thinking of what happened with last 24 hours, where we have seen that, eventually some groups of people had to default like to rough consensus, to fall back consensus instead of an actual, putting in place an actual on-chain vote because they had to answer quickly. That's something we've been discussing within PieDAO for a very long time in terms of how we want to, approach that. Specifically, this merges with the idea that someone in the community has been proposing a couple of times, and that by the way I totally support, that PieDAO could become a liquidity provider of its own pies, right? So that's a fascinating idea, and I think there is a ton of value in it. And in order to that, I think the question is, how are we going to do that? Pretty much. So here, like the structure that has been a little bit sketched out is a scenario where the general consensus with the full voting cycle, which is 3 days, basically comes out with a proposal and say, hey, I think token holders come out and say, I think anytime that ETH reaches $350, then we should take this amount of ETH and basically convert it into USD++. Because it's a good way to diversify the bulk of the DAO itself. It becomes a liquidity provider, like it makes a lot of sense. Correct. Now, in order to do that, you might want to act quickly because the price of ETH is obviously very volatile. And sometimes taking 3 days in order to do that might be the best case. Now, with this kind of structure instead, what do you have is basically 2 separate agent apps. If you guys are not familiar with what an agent app is within the Aragon ecosystem, agent is a very handy way to pretty much sign almost any transactions within the Ethereum network and different DApps, as there is integration within Frame as well. Check it out. And then and you can assign funds to it, right? So the proposal for this specific upgrade basically introduces like a secondary agent app, secondary voting app, with lower timeframes for the voting. And in the previous example, what we might happen is general governance makes this decision, and by making this decision actually moves the amount of specific ETH which they want to convert at that determined price to USD++ to the second agent app. Now, in that third, what is going to happen is the second agent app instead can act quickly, and the only thing that can do is basically control the subset of assets which have been moved into the second agent, and then they can basically decide, like we can decide as a community to swap those assets within 12 hours instead of 3 days. Does that make sense? I think hopefully it should. It's basically kind of a two-level voting mechanism where general governance takes a slower vote first, confirm an intention, and then it takes a faster vote to actually confirm the intention on that specific action. If you guys want to know more, I'm linking the forum post. I think that's an interesting read. A couple of others interesting use case for this specific DAO structure might be token minting through vote. Like one of the things that, for instance, this might be useful for is bounties. So we've been opening a bounty program for quite a few weeks now, and we have been having some contribution, which I think is great. Like the community is expanding, we have new developer joining. There is interest for rebuilding the front end. Right now, disbursing those, obviously those DAO bounty will take sometimes in the middle. Like the way we have been approaching this is that developers come to the community, make a specific proposal, register that into an FFS file, and basically ask for an on-chain vote, confirming the intention of getting paid if the work is being delivered. Same process might happen to have a more agile governance structure and cycle within the distribution of bounties, and possibly many other things, right? I think that's a kind of a small step. I don't believe anything else has been done before within the Aragon ecosystem, having a DAO with 2 different voting up with different timing for different things. I think it's an exciting development, and I encourage you all to kind of get into the discussion and join. Like this has been around for already a few weeks. I think the post is probably dated June 8th, so it's been around for a while. There are 2 on-chain votes about that to create 2 different one agent app and basically 1 voting app. There is 17 hours to join, so feel free to do that. It's been around for a while, and yeah, I think it's exciting. I think this will be the first time we do that. Does anybody has some questions or like want to jump into this discussion? Got a sip of water in the meantime. All right, sounds good. Seems like there aren't many specific comments. If you do, as usual, feel free to jump into Discord or jump into the governance forum post. Like that's a great way to follow, actually in a more of an async way if you are not into instant messaging all the time. I see Chris saying, I said I'll introduce myself when possible, but for today I'm a silent observer, loving the ILO cap price and the idea of having some slots available when governance wants to act upon the new token. Makes sense. Chris, thanks you for the support. I think you have been recently promoted to a PI or G in our Discord. I've seen you around a lot, and I really appreciate you helping more new PI users with a very basic concept about PieDAO. Thank you very much. You are invited to do so as well. Like, there are a bunch of people popping out into the Discord channel. So there is a lot of questions about what's happening within the PieDAO ecosystem. Please help these guys out. Okay, last point on the agenda is celebration. We actually have quite a few things to celebrate. I think you guys might have seen that. But yeah, the Popeyes have been crossing the 1 million total value locked into the pies. So congrats, guys. We did it. The first 1 million locked into pies. That's pretty great, if you ask me. And then, if I recall correctly, this actually happened within a very short amount of time. We are speaking about possibly 24 to 30 hours, something like that. And I think like last time I checked, we were actually more into 1.7 million. So we can have a quick look actually to see how this looks like. I think there is also an interesting thing, like how do we should calculate the total amount, because if you take the amount of BTC++ and then you actually use as a price reference CoinGecko, it would be slightly higher than what's showed over here. WTB. I'm sorry, I don't know what WTB means. Sorry. I want to buy. So like right now, pretty great. These are the two largest pull into the balancer ecosystem, both averaging out 800K USD dollar. So you know that's pretty great, and this happened fairly fast. So congrats everyone, great job. I actually think this phase is not really showing a bunch of things, like it's not showing the trade volume, even if there are trades within the same day. Like, you know, something is wrong with the interface. It's probably due to the graph outage. Same here. Like we can see a bunch of different swaps, and there is no trade volume, so that's something that we might want to look at to find a more reliable source of information. That being said, hopefully we will see on DeFi Pulse PieDAO pretty soon. That would be great. Yeah, right now because Graph is dead. Yeah, I know. Like Graph has been not holding well. To be fair, like I posted an email just before. Like if you guys, I don't know if you guys see it. Like this is a little bit how, you know, PieDAO will look like making the calculation. This will be surpassed now. Like we would be major 1.7, so taking out Ray as well, and kind of going after the Nuo network, which is I think a pretty impressive growth at this rate. Obviously, you know, we have tons of respect for all the OG projects such as, you know, Augur and Melon, like, and all these kind of things, and you know, even surpassing stuff which is fairly new and very popular, like Copin. I think it's a great achievement. Yeah, I think DeFi currently should call the manager. Like, hopefully we're gonna see more growth soon. I'm personally extremely bullish about the DeFi pie and the two different subset. One last thing I wanted to show off. I know Nico is not in the condition right now to present, but thank you guys for, like, almost everyone has been participating. Kit, like you have been extremely helpful with your feedback, like all the time. You really spend a lot of time.
I can actually only talk, but I wanted to say thank you myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we can
No,
hear you.
Yeah,
right?
loud and clear.
Yeah, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, my connection is down because I'm on the train, but I wanted to say thank you myself, especially he said the call, because he always shares a lot of precious feedback with me.
Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it.
Kit, thank you very much for being. Kit is the real MVP, says Mick. Very much so. But by the way, if you haven't checked this out, this is the new interface, likely come very soon in a screen near you. This has been developed so far, led by our own Dan. And by the way, as we always say, like, there is a Tuesday community Tuesday development call, which is led by Dan. There are, we are looking for people to contribute into this interface. We want people to build it with us. So if you want to build and also get some DAO token for PieDAO, please come and help out. Just a quick overview how this looks like. We get nice charts. We get the market cap of the single pie, what is the swap fees, 7-day price, all these kind of things. And then you obviously can see the allocation breakdown. Within that, you get a number of different links for like the interscan verification, the quantum audit, and so on and so forth. We will gonna try to calculate this annual reward on DAO tokens as well, so you can have that dynamic. That would be cool. I was actually asking to the.
The only problem with that annual returns percentage is it might be so high it doesn't fit in that box. We might have to scale it down a little bit.
Yeah, that might be the case. Hopefully, for all the good farmers out there. And this might change slightly, but basically, like, the idea is to really give a total breakdown of all the possible markets where you can get the pie, and maybe some reference to it all over the place. Also, new thing coming on. Finally, the new minting interface. I know some people have been struggling with that. We've been really kind of playing so far with UI and the app development in terms of spending much time. This is a natural UI, like an actual production UI. But as you know, they say if you're not ashamed of your own product, then you launch too late. So I think we definitely didn't do that. But what happens into this interface? Exciting new features, in particular single asset entry, the new implementation of the smart contract, which will be, I think, in outing sometimes next week. We'll introduce a couple of different things, including reaching parity for some of the finalized pool stuff, including the single asset entry. That will mean that, for instance, you can mint BTC++ by only supplying a single asset. I think a lot of people were looking for that. We received a ton of feedback. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about it. Obviously, you still get the multi interface, something that you might be familiar with when you actually do provide all the single assets. There have been one slight feedback, which we didn't implement yet, about numbers and about the fact that maybe this arrow is a little bit confusing. So this might be removed at some point. Yeah, and then we also get withdrawal, which was not in the current interface. Some people have been using the smart contract to scan, which is obviously available anytime. Like, you also will get a similar interface for exiting into a single asset and exiting into multiple assets. So that's it. That's all we got for today. Make sure you have been claiming your token. I know Dan has been sending the different links, and now for the ones who wants to hang out, I'm gonna grab a beer and just celebrate with you guys.
Excellent, and I'm going to stop the recording now.